Hey guys, Diana here from Garden Loves. So I have a surprise for you guys. I'm actually here at Charles Ivy Organics home. He had a gardening club and I wanted to give you guys a quick tour. His place is amazing. Talk about being able to maximize your space. You guys know that I'm all about that because I'm limited in space and I don't have a lot of growing space, and I want to show you guys what he's done here. It's amazing. He has condensed trees and it just looks beautiful. Not only is it amazing how he's putting these trees together, it just has a beautiful landscape, and that's always been my ultimate goal, and I'm really inspired by this garden, and I want to give you guys a quick little tour. And I'm gonna have to go back and show you guys the entrance because I was very impressed on how he added a lot of citrus in like a minimal space, maybe 10 by 10 space. Let's get started. To start, as you guys can see, the second level of his courtyard is full of green, and he has this amazing passion fruit growing over the fence. Look at that. And I want to give you guys a perspective of how big this space is, because it's not that big and there's a lot growing here. Look at this. Citrus, this passion fruit, citrus. I want to say there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. That might be one, it just might look like more, but let me show you as we go up to the second level of his courtyard. Here's another one. I know you guys have seen this in his videos, but I just want to emphasize how condensed this area is and how much he's able to grow in such a small space. So if you think you don't have a lot of space to grow, think again, because there's definitely space if you find it and if you just work with the area that you're working with. I'll show you that. There's Charles. Let's go over here. Let me show you the other side of the bottom side. So you can see right here. Here are the citrus trees that we talked about. It was one, but it has a lot of branches. I want to say this is a Eureka lemon. And look at, he's been able to maintain his Eureka lemon at reach level. We all know that Eurekas grow like crazy, and if you don't tame them, they'll just be 16 feet tall or even larger than that. I'm curious to see where his passion fruit is coming from, because it's hanging all over this fence. He has another citrus there. And is this a new one? No, this is just a branch. And here's another one. And as you can see, all of his baby cuttings, he's been using Ivy Organic to protect them from burnt. He used a green one on this one, and they're all doing great. But I'm really curious to find out where this vine is coming from. Oh, there it is. Look at that. He put it at the end of his little fence, and it's growing. You can tell that that's a mature plant. It must be here maybe 5 years. I'll ask it when I get an opportunity. But he's been able to tame it. I'm sure he's been doing constant trimming, and it looks amazing. A lot of inspiration here, guys. I just wanted to take a moment and step back so you guys can see, kind of get an idea of what the space he's working with. If I had to guess, this would be more like 20 by 10. It's not a large space at all, and he's been able to grow these trees, which, you know, I have some space to work with, and seeing how these trees are growing are really inspiring because he's been able to tame them down to reach level, and they're doing great. And here's Charles. Hi Charles, how are you?
Hi, Diana.
I was just showing everybody what an amazing garden you have here and how you were able to condense so much into such a small space. And as you know, that's what my biggest thing on my channel is, that I'm trying to fit as much as I can into my little courtyard and my backyard and my side yard.
So true. I think I measured the total square footage of this backyard land space to be about 600 to 700 square feet.
Okay.
And we've comfortably fit by selecting between semi-dwarf and dwarf and standard sized trees. In some places, close to 20 fruit trees.
Wow, it looks great.
Thank you, Diane.
So, all right guys, Charles has an opportunity to talk to us, and I'm gonna ask him a few of the questions that I was walking around mentioning to you guys. For example, like, what kind of pomegranates do you have going on right here?
So I got 4 varieties of pomegranates in my garden. The number 1 pomegranate you'll find when you go to most nurseries is the wonderful pomegranate, but most of the experts when it comes to pomegranates will pretty much say the wonderful is not so wonderful. It's not the best variety, as the seeds within the wonderful variety are like medium, whereas there's other ones that are closer to seedless or very soft and also way more flavorful than the wonderful variety. So the 3 varieties I've brought into my garden, the number 1 most popular variety of pomegranates to be grown in the country and rated basically the highest on the flavor test is known as the Parfinca. So we've got the Parfinca variety of pomegranates. The other 2 varieties I have is one's called the Desertini, and the last one is called the Granada. And I also naturally planted the wonderful so I can compare in future taste tests the 4 varieties of pomegranates that we have in our property. Here in the backyard I've got the wonderful as well as the Parfinca and the Desertini.
Okay.
So this one here that we're coming across first is the Parfinca variety, and we're going to get to watch this grow in the upcoming year. And then the one right behind it is the Desertini variety pomegranates. And the second variety of pomegranates I have here is the Desertini flavor pomegranate. And again, all of the 3 varieties aside from wonderful are very close to seedless, very soft, small seeds, and we're very eager to enjoy the, again, taste test. They're rated higher than wonderful, and also seed-wise, we're gonna be very close to virtually seedless varieties of pomegranates that we're gonna get to enjoy pretty soon. Just behind this is my Fuerte avocado tree, and check out how vigorous and strong this tree is, and it's less than 3 years old. It's a little more than 2 years. It was planted in a 3-gallon container, so the container size was about this, and the thickness of the tree, which right now, and I'd like to say I've got big hands, but I can't even get my hands all the way around it. And again, this is in less than 3 years, and it was pencil thick when we originally planted it. And I'm pretty sure there's a YouTube video on Ivy Organics where you'll see us planting this particular avocado. And there was a few I shared in a video a couple of months ago, but there's one left. Hopefully,
I did see that.
Here it is, right here. If I can reach in here. So this here is the Fuerte avocado, and we've got the Ivy Organics coated all over this canopy as the sun comes in quite intensely. And of all fruit trees, and I can say this with confidence and with a lot of the growers that I've met here in Southern California, but of all fruit trees, the avocado is one of the hardest to grow, most sensitive to the extremes of summer sunburn as well as winter sun scald, and whitewashing them, especially organic, using the Ivy Organics products, has proven quite healthy, and we're getting a lot of positive testimonials from people growing avocados and whitewashing them. And one important quick lesson I want to share while we're talking about the whitewash is 90 to 99% of the research says simply take latex paint and mix it with 50% water. But when you put paint on your house, 100 years later there's still paint on your house. But this tree trunk is going to continue to grow, and if I put paint on my tree, all of that latex paint is going to wind up in my soil, and as I continuously whitewash using chemical paint, I'm going to just further contaminate my soil and ultimately the environment. And this here is an all-natural, organic way to be caring for your trees. And the Fuerte is a type B, and then here we're at a type A Hass avocado, which is the world's most popular and most grown variety of avocado. Being a type A, the goal between an A and a B is it'll further increase cross-pollination. You only need one avocado to create fruit, but by having an A and a B, the goal is to increase fruit production only by another 5 to 20% more. And that's kind of the goal here.
How old is this one?
This one is a 2-year-old avocado tree.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so this one's 2 and that one's close to 2.5. Obviously, you can see the Fuerte is performing a lot better, but we're just working on just keeping this thing alive. And one of the things that we're battling with here on this property, being that we live on a hillside here in Los Angeles, is one of our neighbors, it costs, and this is actually an issue for everybody on this side of the hill, is we're dealing with shade about 3 months out of the year, and you got to truly get to know your microclimates in regards to how to grow and where to grow things. If we can reverse, just so you can kind of see like what's happening on this side, I'll switch positions with you. But what's going on this side is I pretty much put all of my deciduous trees against my north wall. This is the wall that gets the most shade pretty much from November, December, and all of January, and maybe by late February I'll get some light on this side of my garden. So all of these trees that are naturally deciduous, my figs, my apples, I got peaches, plums, and apricots, they are basically going to be dealing with no light, but they don't need it because their leaves are going to otherwise naturally fall. So it was just logical to put your deciduous trees on the shady microclimate of your garden, and your sun-loving plants such as your avocados and your citrus on your north side of your garden, where it's going to capitalize on the most amount of light. This here is my favorite tree that I've got to share on YouTube, and we together got to grow this from a video we titled OMG, Why Cut the Giving Fig Tree, where it was originally 15 to 20 feet tall. It was a cutting I took from my grandfather's tree in Mission Viejo, and he also brought it from somewhere in Europe originally, and it was a green variety of fig, but not the best tasting fig, but it had a lot of vigor. It can quickly grow in 1 year to about 8 to 10 feet, and by the second year 20 plus feet without pruning. And what we did is we cut it down this low, just 4 to 5 inches off the ground, and it created these 2 large branches. And then about 6 months later, we topped off those large branches to about 2 to 3 feet off the ground, that then created the 7 branches that have now created the 7 flavors of figs we've grafted onto this original tree. And one of my favorites is right here up and in front of us is this tiger, also known as the panache fig, which is a yellowish fig with these stripes. And one of our guests that was here at the garden club earlier asked permission, and I gave it to him, but there's someone else that actually left with some cuttings, and I wanted him to taste like how delicious it was. But it's one of the best tasting figs, and it's just so fun to also just look at compared to these other varieties, which include the Cadota Green. In the middle I got a brown turkey. Up here there's these teeny tiny purple celestial figs, and there's some that are just coming into the ripening as well. And then the 3 in front, these 2 would have been fruiting this year, but because I added just a few months ago the strawberry verte fig, I had to prune back on the Chicago Hardy as well as the green, this is called the green Isha fig, but I had to prune them back to give my strawberry verte a chance at survival. Otherwise it would have been drowned out by too much shade. So that's the reason these have been pruned back, to give all 3 of these what I call balancing the powers between your grafts. And then you can see I'm continuously experimenting with more cuttings, more flavors, and more things that will one day either be integrated into this tree, or I'm just going to have to start another 7-in-1 fig tree. What we have over here...
And I noticed you're also growing onions over here.
Yeah, so these are some onions. This is actually the 2nd year, so our family loves using the tops of the greens for salads. So we capitalize more so on the greens than we do waiting for an actual onion to develop. But these all started as teeny tiny, I'd say 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch onions, and some of them, as you can see here, have grown to about almost 2 inches across. And if I wait another year and allow it to go through another season, they'll end up as like your store-bought onions, something that would be about the size of an apple. Our goal is not necessarily to just do that. Like I said, we use the greens and we'll use the onions, and typically just toss them into our salad, just to get more nutrition that way. And then here we come across what is my 3-in-1 apple tree, and the one that's here in the front, and we've been just starting to harvest it, but this is supposed to be our red gala apples. So in the next few weeks it should get a little bit larger and start changing colors. The one in between is a family favorite, no name, but it's a reddish green apple, and we got 1 apple off of this about 2 months ago. So again, with grafting, the goal is you're going to get to enjoy different apples at different seasons, all on the same rootstock. There's no competition. If you look low enough, it may appear that there's 3 different apples, but they're all working off of 1 root, and they're all grafted somewhere around where I'm holding. There's kind of like a little thicker area right here, that's the graft wound, and another graft, I think, somewhere right in that area, and the same thing up in that zone as well. Those were grafted about 2 feet off the ground. And the last apple that's extremely productive back here is the Granny Smith apple.
And what I noticed that you did differently than most grafted trees that have different varieties is that you actually cut it down, allowed only the branches that you wanted to graft, so they look like individual trees, but it's one rootstock, and
Correct.
you have 3 different branches, what they're called branches, because this is technically a branch, not a actual tree trunk. I mean it is, but
so I'll get in here. Most of your apples will naturally create a lot of suckers, and sometimes if you get lucky, you can yank on one of these suckers, and let's see if we get any luck here. Okay, this one's not going to let go. But some of these suckers, you'll be able to pull them out. Like this one I know I can do. If I pull it, I should be able to get some roots. And if you take a look here, I've now got a sucker with plenty of roots that I can now transplant into a pot, and I believe this is of the M11 or 111, the M111, and this here is kind of a medium semi-dwarf to larger size apple tree, which gives and offers your plants a lot of vigor. I'm going to put this a little in the ground until I have time to repot it, but I've sometimes let some of these suckers happen because this will serve as rootstock. This is going to give the strength and the energy to fuel whatever it is that I want to graft upon it, and as you can see, we've done quite well. And this is a tree also, pretty much all the plants and trees you'll see on this property are less than 3 years old. Prior to that, there was just a fig stump and a lemon tree stump just right where the Fuerte avocado tree was, and that was it. There was no life, no plants, nothing in this backyard when we came to this property about 5 years ago now.
wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you've done and how much you've added in such a condensed area.
Thank you.
Love it.
Another helpful tip I want to share while we're still in this area, you may notice like the blueberries that are in containers, and another one over here on this side. And when it comes to blueberry care, of all fruit trees, blueberries do best in containers. If you try to containerize an apple tree, a fig tree, or any other type of plant, it may work, but they'll always perform better in the ground compared to in a container. And the exception of all the fruits is blueberries. Blueberries do better in a container than they otherwise would do in the ground, just because again you can control and regulate the moisture and the water within the container, whereas in the ground, if the soil gets too wet during the winter months, it could lead to root rot and otherwise compromise the health and the life and the quality of the fruit and the life of the plant.
Wow.
So these are our blueberries.
Yes.
And we've got 2 varieties in these 2 containers.
Before we go on from this area, I wanted to go ahead and ask you about this tree, because when I was doing the walkthrough, I noticed that this tree is kind of growing like in an umbrella. And I think that common misconception of homeowners when they buy a fruit tree, they feel like they just put it in the ground and it's gonna do what it's gonna do. But I noticed, I'm assuming that you trained this tree to actually do this, and you didn't allow it to do what it was gonna do. You were gonna make it do what you wanted it to do.
Absolutely. When it comes to your fruit trees, and I'd say with at least 90 to almost 100%, but I want to say 100%, and I'll tell you why in a second. But you as a grower have complete control of the tree. Just like with your pets and your children, you try your best to train them and to make them what you want. So the same thing with this Fuerte avocado. If I never pruned it, it would naturally grow to 25 and 30 feet, which is something I do not want, unless I'm looking for a tree house in my backyard, which again is not the goal here. The goal is to create a tree where I will be able to harvest in years to come most of the fruit without even getting on a ladder. And if I do get on a ladder, which I do occasionally, I'll have a small step ladder where I'll take a couple more feet up and get the rest of the crop. But I don't want things that are, you know, again, out of control. And also, on a commercial farm, you won't find these avocados, whether they be Hosta, Fuerte, or any other varieties, growing to 20 and 30 feet. If, again, on most commercial farms, again, they're usually pruned naturally to about 10 to 15 feet. And our goal here is to do the same thing with this particular avocado. And the reason I put in the disclaimer is that, for example, citrus, and I know with avocados there's some that are naturally more dwarf in habit and other ones that are more vigorous in habit. But with citrus, you can actually buy, for example, a Eureka lemon tree that is on a dwarf, a semi-dwarf, or a standard rootstock, and you may not be able to train a standard Eureka lemon tree to grow 2 to 3 feet because it's on a rootstock that has to grow to at least 6 to 8 feet to at least have the enough branches and stems that will then encourage it to create the flowers and ultimately the fruit. Whereas a dwarf is naturally going to grow 2 to 3 inches per year. It's going to grow inches compared to a standard that's going to grow probably 5 to 10 feet in a year, and a semi-dwarf is going to be something in between. And the goal is, again, depending on that vigor that it's on, being that rootstock, you're going to be able to have different degrees of manageability with the plant.
So how did you do this? Did you top it off, or?
Yeah. So with an avocado, when you start, and there's a few examples I have as we get deeper into the garden, but when you pick up your avocado from the nursery, you'll notice what's called a central leader, which is the main branch. From the time it was an avocado seed and it pushed out that first branch, there'll always be that central leader, and then from the side it'll create these lateral branches. These are the lateral branches, and these larger ones near the top are also lateral branches that was created when we pruned that central leader that's otherwise in the middle. And what it's done now is it's forced the plant to now grow more wide and bushy rather than to grow further straight up and tall. So this is one of the main ways to get large branches lower, and then you can see we've developed this amazing, beautiful canopy that we're hoping next year is going to support dozens and dozens of fruit.
Yes.
Even though this year I've only got one fruit to share, but we did have a few more just about a month or two ago.
Okay, wow. That was a question, because if any, my subscribers seen my video, I topped off my avocado that I'm growing in a container, and I was curious if that was gonna allow me to do what you just did here, which is sounding like it is. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And I love the way you did your passion fruit here. I know this has been in many of your videos, but I finally had an opportunity to see what it actually looks like, how you build it. And I love how you did the cover of this pathway right here. You were able to create something out of nothing, because people would never get this idea to say, hey, I have some space here, I can create kind of like an overhead and grow some food on it. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, this is excellent use of space. If you get the camera up high enough, you can see like where the roof is. And then I basically prune probably once or twice a month. I basically prune those vines to basically stay where I want them, so I don't have vines growing all the way up and over my house, but otherwise it could. But for harvest, when we get under it, you'll notice that it's loaded with passion fruits. We enjoyed the best harvest in early summer, and then during the peak of the summer heat, it stopped flowering, and then as we basically got out of summer, it pushed out a lot more blooms, and now we're going to get to see those green fruit underneath. But we did, basically, I see this as a solar panel of space that otherwise would not be utilized, and we're capitalizing on space to, again, enjoy a lot more fruit from our edible food forest.
Yes.
And the parent passion fruit is actually right here behind the banana. This is our ice cream banana, but yeah, you can see it, and it basically comes down to somewhere in this zone, but you can see that this one is about 5 to 6 years old, and you can see it's probably about an inch and a half thick, and that leads me to the point that a passion fruit on average will only live about 7 years, and we're approaching that, even though it's quite vigorous and still an excellent performer, but we're near the end of this life. And if it wasn't for creating cuttings, which we've got throughout the property, we're trying to preserve the genetics of this passion fruit to make sure that we're going to continue to enjoy it for hopefully the rest of my life. And the only way we're going to get to keep on tasting this flavor of passion fruit is by way of cutting, which I can maybe demonstrate.
Yeah, I noticed you have another passion fruit in the corner of your courtyard.
I do. There's 3 very active and all very well fruiting passion fruits. If you come around the corner here, we can go underneath this lattice that I created, which is my favorite structure. We pruned it, and we did an educational video where we pruned it back to where it's only maybe a foot or two off the corner. And you can see now, here we are in October, probably 6 or 8 months since we pruned it, and we've got a very thick canopy of vines and fruit. I would say I've got at least 2 to 3 dozen passion fruits, and they're all like just hanging freely. And the way it's doing that is we've just only got these 2 bars that are basically supporting all of these vines in position, and then we've got these larger bars off on the side to support those cross bars that are keeping all the vines in place. And that's how simple we've created it, instead of using these tiny lattice structures where the passion fruit gets stuck, and sometimes they end up rotting within the canopy instead of falling to the ground, which is when we know that it's close to being ripe.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, this is pretty thick as well. Is there 2?
Yeah, so this here was
cuttings?
2 cuttings that we put in place, and again, the goal is to see if one would make it, both made it, and we're allowing it to exist. And these are probably about 2 years old now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. And I was also noticing your bananas, how you have them in kind of like a little mountain of compost there.
Yeah, let's come up here.
Which I'm sure it has dual purpose. You're able to provide great soil for these to grow on and also to drain.
Yeah, so this is one of my top, I'd say, 3 favorite plants. In addition to the passion fruits, this here is the ice cream banana, and I don't know if you noticed, but it's fruiting very well in the back, and every single year for the last now 3 years. Our first year we harvested 60 pounds of bananas, and last year we did 58 pounds, and we'll get to weigh this later on this year, and maybe we'll do another harvest video on that as well. But what we do every single year is once we harvest this, and I know there's a lot of people when they see the harvest, we then bring the parent plant down, and sometimes if we just take a couple more feet back, you can see that this one is another method where we basically prune it instead of all the way down to the ground. We've left some of the stalk to basically naturally reabsorb itself into the soil to basically feed. There was 3 of these Manzano variety of bananas. One of them got blown down in our last Santa Ana winds just last week that we had to prune right at that height. You can still see it's quite juicy over there since we pruned it about 2 days ago. And then over here is our Goldfinger variety of bananas. Right over my head you can see this little bunch of bananas, and these are a smaller variety, and we're just simply using the stock from last year when we harvested the bananas off the Manzano, and you can see that the parent plant simply dies even if you don't do anything. Once you harvest the bananas, the parent plant will no longer produce any more leaves and absolutely no more fruit. So the goal is to simply remove the parent plant. If we come down, you'll see that these are going to be the future heirs to what I like calling the crown of the banana. So there's a crown under the ground that are continuously producing these pups, and it's your goal to manage the number of pups, and ideally most people keep about 2 to 3 at a time. If you have more, it's going to suck out too many resources from the soil and from the nutrition of however you're feeding it, and it'll compromise the quality of the fruit. I think this year we didn't get to enjoy any flowers or fruit off the Manzano because I allowed it. I followed some of the advice saying, you know, do 3. I did 3 and we got no flowers for the first year. I think again because the resources went into too much plant compared if I just had 1 or 2. So I got too greedy and didn't get any flowers.
And I noticed that those grew a lot taller, and this one was a lot shorter when it started to fruit.
Different varieties.
Oh,
too.
different varieties.
So
okay.
This here is the Goldfinger. So if you want to see, like, you know, how it looks and shape style, and it got beat up again because of the Santa Ana winds, but by spring it'll create the new leaves and it'll look young and super healthy again. This is the Manzano, also known as the apple variety of banana, and the one behind it as well is also the same variety. And then let's go back to the banana, the ice cream banana. So again, this is my favorite one, the ice cream banana, also known as the blue Java banana. And as Diane said, if you take a look under here, this is now the 3rd year that this tree has been producing. And I say tree lightly, bananas are referred to as plants and not trees, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But all of the parents from the past, when we basically harvest the fruit, we bring the parent down, we recycle all of the trunks and leaves back into this pile, and that's the reason this pile keeps on growing. But this is the nutrition. All the things that went into creating the plant basically gets recycled back into the earth, feeds all the soil biology, which includes the earthworms, beneficial bacteria, and nematodes, and basically further supports and brings more life into those baby, you know, pups, and also known as suckers. It just creates more fruit and more life and more health year after year after year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, as we're talking here, I'm noticing that you are truly maximizing your space, because one thing that I haven't seen in all the videos you produce is this back area. And how you actually have even more fruit trees growing back there. And I noticed one of my ultimate favorite fruit tree, which is the Loquat. All my subscribers know that I absolutely love Loquats. Last spring I was very disappointed that the Loquat I had didn't fruit. And
if you love Loquat, then this here is a gift for you.
Oh, thank you.
The variety of Loquat I planted back here is known as the Big Jim. And what we did is we simply saved some of the seeds from the fruit to create now this generation of Loquat. For those of you that you know, understand the genetics of plants, if you plant a seed, it's no longer a Big Jim, but a relative of Big Jim, which may have better quality fruit, but it can also be inferior. But I've noticed a lot of people have typically a lot of good success growing Loquats from seeds and just basically enjoying the fruits you know, from that. And you can see with this one, it looks like there's 2 seeds, hence 2 trunks. So maybe you'll end up enjoying, you know, 2 flavors of Loquat, or we can even experiment with even a third as another practice we've done in addition to Loquats. And you can see here we are in October and it's blooming. But if you want to have fruit really early in the garden and like to kind of like spread out if you've got enough property, Loquat's one of the best additional fruits you can bring to your garden, because you'll enjoy fruits typically in January, February, and March when the other ones are just starting to bloom. These will be fruiting.
Yes.
So it gives us a lot of diversity here in the home garden to just enjoy these different varieties of fruits.
Yes, have something different to pick. And that was actually new to me because I didn't expect it to start fruiting in October. I was thinking like maybe more closer to January. I went out to my garden and I saw like these little bundles of, they weren't foliage, so I was pretty surprised. I did a video and I was very, very happy to find out there was flowers, because I was so disappointed last year, but I'll definitely be getting fruit next year.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And then the other thing in regards to like growing in clusters, like I said, this here is 2 and we can even put a third one. Some people capitalize on maximizing space by basically planting a few varieties in a tight space and just enjoying what would otherwise be 1/3 the capacity of what one tree would otherwise do by itself. But if you put 3, we can enjoy 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 of the quality, and not necessarily the size, but it just won't perform as well as it otherwise could by itself, but it'll give you a chance to taste and sample a few. And then if one is inferior, you can remove it to the benefit of the other varieties as well. And we've done that with these plums that are actually behind the wall in the corner. And the space in regards to capitalizing on space is additional square footage that we didn't know we had when we first moved in. But we ended up putting up the fence and we got an extra 5 or 6 feet of additional space behind the wall. And back there we've got a Santa Rosa plum and a Satsuma plum. So 2 varieties of plum, which will help with the cross-pollination. And again, we put them in one hole. We did an educational YouTube video on that and we did get to enjoy some fruit off of that this year. So this is year 2 and next year we expect hopefully some great results off of that. But for those of you, and you've already seen my 7-in-1 fig, we saw the 3-in-1 apple, and this here is another educational lesson we did not too long ago, where this is my favorite way to get a lot of flavors of fruit all on one root, so that way the roots are not competing with each other, and as long as you manage and prune, because you can see what we have over here is a plum, and behind here a peach, and in front of me to the right an apricot. So we've got 3 varieties of what are in what's called the prunus family of trees, which can also cross-pollinate each other, and that's how you get you know, very unique different flavors of fruit that are being created. I know there's a specialty fruit company in the middle of California, like Spicy Nectarine and the Necto Plum and all of these varieties are created by cross-pollinating between these related, even though very different looking, types of fruits. And so we've now got 3 varieties of fruits growing on one root, and the goal is to just continuously add and build on to this. And my goal with this one is to turn into a 10 to 20 flavor fruit tree all on one apple, with the next introductions being like cherries and almonds and just so much. The possibilities are limitless. And
since you're like the king of grafting, I have a question for you, because like I mentioned earlier, Loquats are my favorite. This last summer, since I realized that I wasn't going to get fruit this summer, this summer, I was like, okay, well, I want to graft. There's a long story behind my Loquat story, because when I purchased it, I didn't realize that it was a seedling. I thought it was a grafted because I purchased it at the nursery. So when I went back and asked what kind of fruit I had gotten, they were like, it's a seedling, it's a gold nugget. So I was pretty disappointed. So I attempt to graft some branches onto that tree that's now flowering, and they didn't succeed.
Oh, the grafts didn't work.
Yes.
Okay.
So any tips or advice, because I would love for that one tree to have more varieties, because I love Loquat so much.
Absolutely. My favorite and easiest grafting method, which I love teaching, is a grafting method known as the approach graft technique, and that's whereby you simply grow these 2 plants basically together. And and one example I can share with, and even these were created by approach grafting.
I remember that.
The success rate is very close to 100%, and even if it appears that they're not grafted, you can just simply wait a few more weeks and revisit it, and you'll see the callus tissues happening between it. Can I quickly demonstrate like an example, like how that would work? If we come over here, So all of these little figs that are in containers were all basically cuttings that were designed specifically. And again, with the cutting, the goal is that we've cloned varieties that we are proven. I have a label somewhere, but I can see here it's got a pink tie that was around here, and that's associated with one of the flavors that's up here. And what we did, and I've got to get through the netting over here, but this one here is like one of the most obvious. You can see that this here was connected. This here is the celestial purple fig, was connected to its container like so, let's say. And what we did is we simply grafted the celestial fig onto the rootstock green fig that my grandpa otherwise brought from Europe 30 to 40 years ago, and we simply allowed it to graft, and we watched it. It's a process that takes on average in as little as 10 to 20 days, but we let it continuously heal for about 6 to 8 weeks. And once it's healed, then we sever the scion wood, because the grafted wood is known as the scion. So now we remove the scion wood, and then we cut right above the rootstock to encourage all of the resources from the rootstock to go into the grafted scion wood. And that's how we've created all of these 7 varieties. Same way I've done my apple tree. This is a 3-in-1 apple tree. Same way we've done others. But another method, which is the way I'd say 90+% of people graft, is by way of cleft graft, and I've demonstrated that as well in videos. But this one here is a cleft graft of the strawberry verite fig right in this area. So this one is a cleft, and below it, and you can still see the wood that's coming off of it, is the approach graft technique. So my answer to your inquiry, what's the best way to graft? Approach graft. It's the easiest and most successful way of grafting your fruit trees.
Wow, it's definitely something I'm gonna have to try, because I love loquats, and as you know, loquats tend to be kind of like an avocado tree. They grow really wide and large, and so I'm very limited in space, and I'm growing it in a wine barrel, and I think definitely I'm gonna have to do that so I can enjoy more of that fruit.
Wonderful.
So now that we are here in the courtyard, and I know I gave you guys a little walkthrough before we got an opportunity to talk to Charles, and we saw all his citrus growing along his borderline here of his courtyard. He's going to tell us a little bit about what he has growing and why he has them there.
Awesome. So what I've done over in this area, I've got a series of 3 standard, so they're on standard rootstocks, which may sound counterintuitive, being this is limited space in my courtyard. Meyer lemons. These are sweet lemons. Meyer lemons naturally grow more compact. They're also less vigorous than the other varieties of lemons, such as the Eureka and the Lisbon lemon, which I also have on my property as well. But I would not dare to put them in standard form in my small courtyard. But the Meyer lemons have done quite well, and something I shared with a few people here in my garden club is, this is a part of my backyard, and we've talked about microclimate before, and we also just talked about it here in the video, being the north side of my garden gets a lot of shade. As you can see, there's shade all over my garden. Here we are now approaching the last weeks of October, and pretty much November, December, January are all shade north side, but my south side, or the north part of my garden, is still in the sun. The citrus love, obviously, full sun, but of all the citrus varieties, I've noticed, and I've had navel oranges growing here, and they were struggling, but the Meyer lemons have done quite well and have tolerated quite well, handling 2 to 3 months of complete shade. We're talking about no sunlight, direct sunlight hitting these plants at all. So of all of the varieties of citrus, I've noticed that the Meyer lemons do quite well, and I've researched this also extensively to find out what kind of citrus can I put in my garden that can tolerate, I'm telling you, 2 to 3 months without any direct light. Obviously it's getting some light. There's some light going on over here, but no direct light for at least 2 to 3 months. And again, come spring, they still push out the flowers. They're supporting quite a bit of fruit. And last year we harvested, I'd say, close to 300 lemons off of the Meyer lemon section of our garden. And you can still see here we are in October. I just scared that bee off, but we're enjoying beautiful flowers. And I know somewhere right below here we've got some teeny tiny fruit. And then we've got these larger fruit as well. So I mean, there's all different stages of life happening on these Meyer lemons. And then if you're not so interested in the sweet lemons, which really add great flavor to a lot of cooking, we've then got these Eureka lemons, which is your store-bought lemons, and towards the end I've got my Lisbon lemon as well, which is very comparable to the Eureka lemon. And the number one question that I get, and I still have also another larger lemon tree in the front yard, but the question I get all the time is, why so many lemons? And my family, and it's not just me, but my brothers, my parents, and all my aunts and uncles that like cooking a lot at home, and don't have salad dressings at home, this is our number way of making our own homemade salad dressings and marinades, and even for that occasional flavored water. That's what we do with our lemons. And all the surplus lemons we typically get between December and January, we'll just squeeze and put them in ice cube trays, and pretty much use those lemons during the the skinny months where we're barely getting a few lemons. So during the months that we don't get that many lemons, so pretty much the lemon season peaks in the winter months. So from November, December, January, February, March are like the best months for harvesting lemons, but you may still have quite a few, May, June, July, but as the temperatures peak, there's typically, if there aren't any more lemons, they'll fall, and you'll just simply have to wait and ride it out until wintertime. And that's when we resort on our lemon cubes to basically, defrost and bring that into our cooking as well. So that's the importance of having all of these citrus, especially lemon trees, here in our home garden.
That's amazing. While we're here, I'm just gonna come back and show them how you also incorporated your other passion fruit we were talking about. And I was showing them where you actually started growing it. So passion fruit can basically just grow anywhere.
They grow anywhere. One of the cool things we're doing, and you weren't here for the garden class. During our garden class, there's a lady that introduced me that was there to a homeless shelter which is based in Hollywood. It's known as the Hollywood Adventist Church, and I got involved with them just 4 weeks ago now. And they there basically shower the homeless people, they feed the homeless people, and they typically on average have about 7 days reserve of food to basically feed those that come in, and they're open every day from about 7 to 6 o'clock to feed them, to shower them, to offer them shelter, books, and it's a way for them to just socially get together. My involvement has been to basically improve their garden and to maximize on fruit production so that again they can get the best quality organic foods to feed those that are less fortunate. And one of those that we're basically we've already started working on is bringing in passion fruits. And the goal is, and I've noticed on the property, they have chain link fence surrounding the entire church. I'm like, we can get passion fruit up there, everybody's going to think it's ivy, but within it, and for those that have planted it, they'll know that that's going to be our secret, reserves of fruit that are valued. If you go to a supermarket, $3 to $5 a piece, highly nutritious, high in vitamin C, a lot of vitamins and minerals. And the flavor, for those of you that don't know, it's the flavor that was used to create fruit punch. So if you like fruit punch, and for those of you that don't like it because it's too sweet, passion fruit is the best tasting thing ever. And it's an awesome addition to fruit salads. It basically makes all flavors just get that much better. So we're basically integrating passion fruit. Next week we're looking to basically also plant avocados and pomegranates and olives and
a loquat.
Well, we basically are taking over the whole perimeter of the church, and it's all fenced in. And as, for example, they have bottle brush that are dying on their property, we're replacing the bottle brush with an edible fruit tree that'll continuously, instead of watering something that's flowering, we'll get something that's flowering and fruiting. To offer all those benefits to the surrounding community. So that's something we're working on. Again, like I said, starting only 4 weeks ago, and I'll be sharing more and more of that as these projects continue to develop.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, guys, before I leave, I wanted to make sure that I asked Charles a little bit about his front yard, because like I mentioned in my walkthrough, when Charles was busy talking to other people and we were chatting away and admiring his garden, I told you that in the front of his house he has like some step planters and they look amazing. I love the way he was able to fit, how many do you have there?
There's 4 citrus trees.
4 citrus trees, which eventually would be kind of like a hedge, and it's going to look very pretty. And I wanted him to tell us a little bit about it before I leave.
Awesome. So as we work up the stairs, the first citrus tree that's over here is a standard Eureka lemon tree, and you can see if I were to stand kind of at the ground level, it measures a good about 10 feet tall, and it's loaded with fruit. Last year we enjoyed about 50 fruit, and this year I expect to harvest close to 200 Eureka lemons. Here we are, in October. It's still flowering and fruiting, all different sizes. We've even been picking off of this for the last month. As again, the peak season for this is winter for citrus harvest. So Eureka lemon tree, as we come around the corner, in the container is our Nagami kumquat. And again, there's a lot of little fruit, and there's I want to see if he's still in here, but there's been a praying mantis, a female one that's been laying eggs within here for the last couple of months. I just found it. It's right here. And it leads me to one of my points. You see that praying mantis, that brown female back there?
I see it.
Got a couple of egg masses in there as well. But one of the things we taught today in the garden club is my two favorite organic pesticides, and I didn't use any in my garden this year, but the only reason I would use a pesticide is to control this issue, which is called citrus leaf miner. And fortunately, you can see over here, I've been pruning pretty much most of the damage within the plant, and it hasn't been really noticeable, at least not at this stage of growth. When a plant is young and it's attacked by citrus leaf miner, it may be more important to try organic fertilizers such as organic pesticides, being neem oil is one of my favorites as for an oil, and then spinosad. Captain Jack's is the product as well for basically controlling citrus leaf miner on your citrus. But again, this is a year, because my trees are getting larger, I haven't needed to do it. And then one of the points we shared in the garden club is using even an organic pesticide still kills, and I wrote the letter E and had them answer it, and the answer is everything. It still kills everything. So if we're going to kill any of the citrus leaf miner or aphids or anything else within a bush or a plant, it's also going to kill that praying mantis that's a beneficial insect. It'll kill the ladybugs, it'll kill all the things that are otherwise good. So be very careful with your use of even organic pesticides on plants where you know that there's other good life within it, as here in our Nagami kumquat. As we round the corner, I've got two varieties of orange. This one here is my navel orange, and then behind it a Valencia orange. Last year we got one fruit off of this, but our Rio Red grapefruit, we harvested about 6 or 7 fruit last year, and this year it took a break. And again, this is only year 2.5. Like, we haven't even hit 3 years since these were planted. And the last one over here is our Oro Blanco grapefruit, which is one of the sweetest of all grapefruit varieties, even of your pink and red varieties. The Oro Blanco is characterized as one of the sweetest, most delicious tasting of the grapefruit varieties. I'm reaching at about 8 feet. It's probably at about 9 feet right now. But all of these that I planted in these very tight planting areas are of these semi-dwarf varieties. These plants are all going to be managed to be about 6 to 8 feet. And even if they wanted to grow taller, I'm always going to keep them in check throughout the year to keep them as nice decorative trees that are also providing beautiful scented flowers during the spring and awesome fruit to enjoy by the end of the year. Why plant anything else?
Awesome, yes.
And then we've got our Halloween decorations and getting ready for the fall transformation. And here we are at the front door. Down below here, we've got our rose bed, which consists of roses that were here from about 30 to 40 years ago, which include the Double Delight roses. And then earlier this year on your left side was the Mr. Lincoln that we just added. And on the right, we did the Don Juan, which is a climbing red rose. And you can see we just planted this. We did another YouTube on this about 3 months ago. And here we are now about 8 to 10 feet off the ground, and we're enjoying flowers right next to the front door. This is fantastic. And that was really the goal by next year, and we're getting to enjoy that a lot sooner.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charles.
Thanks for stopping by.
Great view. Just wanted to show them one last time how kind of like a different view on how pretty these fruit trees look and how you managed to put them in such a small space.
Yeah, the goal is basically as you come down, there's just be, you know, steps of citrus all the way down, and all these different varieties, and again, they all have different sizes and different colors, and there'll always be something to see when you come and visit me.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Charles. I really enjoyed coming to visit you and getting an opportunity to tour your garden. It's amazing. I'm in love. I've got a lot of inspiration from here for my personal garden, and hopefully for other people who are watching this video. You gave us tons of lessons just in the few minutes that we walked through your garden, and I hope everybody were able to take something from this video.
Wonderful.
Really appreciate
No, we
it.
love you, Diana. We love you, Garden Love,
Yes.
and we love your YouTube channel, all the things that you've got to offer. And like I said, if you have any comments, I'll be checking these out as well and providing my feedback. And my question back to you guys again is, share with me what fruit trees you would recommend planting. We're here in the Los Angeles area that would do quite well, very productive, easy care. I'd just love to get a little bit more insight from you guys as well. So share your comments, obviously like us.
Yes.
You know, we love those likes. And anything more you want to say?
That's it. You said it all, and you gave us so much information. I'm looking forward to seeing the comments and going back to the video myself and just learning and taking notes, because we've learned so much. Thank you so much, Charles.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana.
Bye, guys.
See ya.